Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thanks, sorry for the delay. We had a robust board meeting, so we're here now to have our workshop on the proposed 2026 legislative platform priorities. So a courtesy reminder that this board workshop is recorded and it is live streamed on Zoom webinar. There will be votes taken during this workshop. So we'll start with the introduction of commissioners and presenters around the table and then the rest of the room. So I am Mary Jo McGuire, Commissioner District 2.
I am Tara Devon Singh, Commissioner District 1.
Rafael Ortega, District 5.
Mai Chan Chan, Commissioner District 6.
Garrison McMurtry, Commissioner District 3.
Kelly Miller, Commissioner District 7.
Hi, Marie Rabia, Chief of Staff, filling record. Hello, Jennifer O'Rourke, Director of Government Relations for Ramsey County. Lynn Becker, County Manager.
Larry Timmerman, also planning and administrative staff.
Hi, James, Chief Executive.
We'll to the back. Let's just start in the back then and we'll come on forward.
Even the Director of Communications and Public Relations.
Angie Gunther, Regional Deputy Administrator, IPR is.
Jen Horn, Senior Policy Analyst. Marissa Dillon, Planning Manager. Karen Francois, Deputy County Manager, Information and Public Records. Gary Collins, Deputy County Manager, Economic Growth and Investment. Christy Hobbs, Planning Manager, County Manager's Office.
Elijah Holiday, Planning Manager, Office of Safety and Justice.
Veronica Jackson, Racing Health Equity Administrator.
Michaela Campbell, 8th Commissioner Meyer, District 2.
And Rachel Sosojik, I'm a lobbyist with Buffalo. Amy Waslick, Ramsey County Government Relations. Julie Wood, Ramsey County Government Relations.
Andrew Greenlee, Deputy Chief of Staff.
Great. Thanks everyone for being here. I appreciate that. And I know Commissioner Moran is with us in spirit as she's Vice Chair of the Legislative Committee. We'll be visiting with her on another occasion. So thanks everyone for being here. I'm excited to have this second meeting of our legislative committee. And we are going to be setting more formally our legislative priorities for today. So we are planning for a legislative committee on the whole on November 4th, and then would hopefully take a vote on the platform on November 18th. So that gives a bit of the schedule for our work. Director Jennifer O'Rourke will be our main presenter and has both Amy Waslick and Jolie Wood here to help with questions. We want to continue the good discussion from our last board workshop where we were basically introduced to all of these issues. We'll build off that and the good workshop that we had on CPA and possible PILT strategies. So we have we have another meeting at noon. So we have a lot of material to get through. What we've done is it's in batches. There will be points at which we'll break for questions. So if we can hold our questions till we go to a question break, unless you need a clarifying question, but then we'll for sure get through the whole presentation. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Chief of Staff, Maria Sarabia, who oversees government relations. Thank you for being here.
So I'm gonna do this slide to, great, we're gonna overview the goals of the workshop, and so as we've, Madam Chair, as you've remembered, we have gone through, we've been on a journey a bit here, from September 23rd, when we had our first board workshop. So the purpose of today is to bring proposed 2026 legislative priority framework. We're going to help you all remember that very similar to like our budget process here with our legislative platform, Director O'Rourke and her team have worked really closely with all of the directors across the organization, subject matter experts, and they've worked very hard and diligently to bring forth some proposals that work best for this organization in these moments. There's been significant criteria and analysis and policy identification that's taken place and work groups, and this has been quite the build up to get here today. And so really thankful for the directors who've been engaged in this process, the DCMs, our executive team has had a good review and have connected with directors as well to be here today with the board. So what we're gonna do is review some of our strategy, our advocacy strategy with you all, and also solicit and pull back any feedback on the proposed platform, when there will be a vote, with the committee of the whole in November 4th. So also coming out of that last time we met, there's been a lot of work and activity and a lot of focus. What you're gonna see today is a lot of the what. And I'm wanting you all to know that a little bit of the how is also important. And so there's an effort and very focused effort to be increasing our engagement along this process. With the organization and with you all, we want to have clear, effective, and timely coordination across the organization as we develop the platform and move forward. And we're really emphasizing having a strategic approach. We want you all to be equipped with tools that can help you be our champions and lead in spaces outside of this building and out in the community with your colleagues and with the legislature. So up to date, you guys have asked for us to be more focused. I will be proud to say, in the past, we've had hundreds of items. What you're gonna see today is 5 heavy hitters of policy issues that are very focused. And there's dozens more underneath that, but we're trying to be really focused. We heard you all in the last time we met. And I want to just also thank the deputy chief of staff and the director and the team who've worked really hard to get us here today. And I'm excited about, the work has been including identifying policy issues, and then also the criteria has been woven in around focusing on core county responsible services, being one Ramsey County, promoting excellence, working in partnerships, and then also having an eye on our long-term fiscal health. So I will pause there. And I believe I'm gonna pass it over to County Manager Becker, who's gonna give a little bit more context on sort of the uniqueness of our situation right now and our policy platform and how we're trying to address unprecedented circumstances.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. Madam Chair, Commissioners, I just had asked for one slide, before we do the overall legislative strategy, just to really ground ourselves in the most critical and pressing thing that I think, you alluded to this morning in the board meeting around some of the federal challenges. And so not necessarily the federal shutdown, but really we're going back to some of the things I presented in our budget around some of the federal changes when it comes to SNAP and Medicaid. Recognizing NACO identified these very unprecedented shifts to local government. I think the stakes have never been higher. So I think what I just want to lift up is it's really forcing us to think about new approaches and maybe rethinking how we do this work a little bit differently while we continue to have a legislative strategy. We have to have some nimbleness in our path forward because of these persistent property tax pressures that are going to be lingering over multiple budgets. And so I'm just gonna really just call out that we have to be pretty agile with this changing condition. There is gonna be opportunities, and there already has been opportunities to take ownership and to participate in emerging and urgent conversations where maybe, we're requesting District 10 to do something they haven't done before. I feel like the county administrators have had very serious conversations to be added to tables that we currently have not been added. It's been a very much human services manager driven solution while they're working on technicalities. Whereas I think from a broader scope of reducing property tax pressure, we have some other pressing desire to change the conversation about really how the state does this work potentially. So I want to make sure we are laying the right foundation and that you're receptive, that, we really will be ready for any and all solutions, like the solutions we've been talking about for the last 10-15 years around the technical aspects of how to improve systems might not be big enough or bold enough to really get us out of the situation. And so there's also the nuance of balancing relationships while preserving our fiscal health. And that came up strongly in your conversations around CPA over the last few years when it comes to, how do we make the pot bigger? How do we make sure, we're participating with our other counties? But at the end of the day, no one's coming to save us. And we really do have to take that mentality a little bit more. So one of the biggest next steps that we're doing is I'm gonna launch what's called the Human Services Advocacy Team. We have a lot of leaders, from our CFO to DCMs to department directors to now our, deputy chief of staff, our government relations people, our chief of staff, everybody's sitting at different places. And I need to make sure everyone's talking to each other so that we are informing our work, so that we're not in right hand isn't talking to the left because we're at different layers of the conversation or in different rooms. So We're gonna be pulling together that coordination alignment. It's a little murky still, very similar to the frat work, but a little bit different, just a really focus on human service advocacy. So we don't miss something and miss an opportunity. I don't want to miss and then there's some connection back to you. I had a really good conversation with Commissioner McMurtry on Saturday when we were at the registry event saying, I have a need for District 10 to step up on something and the administrators need to tell you this. So as our representative, can you bring this forward? You know, so I just need to make sure it's a reciprocal relationship where we are trying to collate what we're hearing, feeling, and what we're needing. And then there's a train back to you all too. So hopefully you're receptive of some of that strategy, but I think this is the most important work advocacy wise that we need to do this year. All the rest is really important and it's things we really care about. But at the end of the day, this is the bottom line of prioritization. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for realizing all of that and for all the coordination. I think we can't get it. Yeah, there's never too much coordination on making sure that we know what each other is doing. So I really appreciate that. And with that, I just wanted to say one more thing too, that as you see all of these proposals, these are proposals. We are the board and we get to decide, you know, if we affirm these priorities, if we affirm this, and that's what today is all about, is to say, well, wait, we thought maybe this, or we thought maybe that. That's what today's for. So thank you. And so Director O'Rourke.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, County Manager Becker and Chief of Staff Sarabia. It's been great to work with everybody on this thus far, and there's real work ahead of us. So additionally, I'd like to really shout out and thank everybody behind me in the room. It means a lot to see as many managers and directors and DCMs here because we get to drive this train, so to speak, but there's so much work that happens to get us to this point and really to carry our messages forward. Slide 5 that's in front of you, you've seen this before with a few changes. These are really some themes that County Manager Becker was super instrumental in bringing forward to the legislative delegation meeting that we had to talk to them about the proposed budget on September 9th. We envision in government relations putting this into our platform as sort of like some guiding principles. We always sort of have guiding principles to it, but using these themes, I think, covers all the bases. The one that does have changes, because you can read for yourself here, we switched up the last bottom right square, if you will, and it used to say something along the lines of calling out the CPA fixes that we need and the PILT proposal. We just changed it to reduce reliance on property tax because it's a bigger bucket that speaks to just a broader attack on that. Slide 6, we really get into some of the meat of this. We wanted to really lay out for you sort of the advocacy strategy that we have going into this. We're working on the platform now, but obviously this work happens year round. And the update that you heard from Deputy Chief of Staff this morning about the NACO and the federal work and all of that really just kind of showcases the pressures and the need for us to step up in these spaces year round. Our approach really is to focus on the most critical, urgent, and realistically achievable priorities. As you know, this is not technically a budget year. This is a bonding year and it's a policy year. So there's not a lot of extra money around. So we walk into this next session with that top of mind. Ling often uses the phrase county responsible, and I love that because it allows us to really all focus in on what the county is responsible for. I'll thank you in advance, but I know we're going to continue to have good, strong strategic engagement by you all as commissioners. We have tons of evidence of that from the 2025 session, so we're going to lead with that next year as well. We heard from both, we know there's an appetite from legislators for sort of deep dives on different policy topics. So for now, we're calling them hot topics. And we've done some survey work around that, so we'll cover more of that. But so that's some of the work that I envision us able to do in, in the November to February timeframe. And then just obviously leveraging partnerships wherever possible, whether that's our suburban cities, the city of St. Paul, community groups, other counties. We're already doing a lot of that work, but I think what we're laying out for you today kind of puts more of it, formalizes it, if you will. And then the gray bar on the right, I just want to spend a few seconds on that. For a while now, we've wanted to be more focused in our platform. And I think this was the perfect year to scrap everything and start over fresh. We did that with our LPAT work and input from a lot of folks around the room behind me. We've worked with the NACO platform and just really honing in on what we heard out of the staff and what's percolating at the legislature to go from really 131 platform items down to 30 when you laid across pursuing support and leading advocacy. This is a slide 7. Really just a sort of is our promise to you, if you will, outlining a lot of the roles and responsibilities as we walk through the work before us. The pursue ones are the ones to kind of spend the most brain power on, if that's okay for today. You see check marks and everything on that left-hand column. You know, it's finding the bill author, working with the bill author to get the bill jacketed and introduced, coming up with the key partners, letters of support, convening the internal folks that we need as your government relations generalists to get the expertise on any given issue. We work a lot with internal staff, but I just wanted to call up that important work. The commissioner assignments, we talked a little bit about that earlier, and we put together a fun worksheet that's in the back of your packet. We'll get to more later, but that really lays out some strategy, if you will, and just sort of where a bill goes for introduction and where a bill goes for hearings and whatnot. That's just important for you all to, I think, see, and then we'll fit you all into that later. We work heavily with the communications department, and specifically Eve Enduro, who's in the back of the room, heads up, is our main point of contact in that. But with them, we come up with the talking points, one pager, how to package everything, and they're really a backbone to this work. And I just want to thank them in advance for all of that. And then the last nugget on that page is just providing supporting data and narrative information where appropriate. Being the home county to the capital, I'll say we're often called on to find a commissioner that can come testify, or because we're the second largest county, we're often called on to respond to different proposals. That's important work, and we wanted to acknowledge it. All right, now we're getting into the real meat of it. I'll stop real quick for any questions.
We did, okay, Commissioner McMurtry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions. On page 6 with the approach section, we mentioned the work of the briefings and the hot topics. Will that just be hot topics in regards to potential legislation for next year, or is it also kind of a longer term approach of thinking of, down the road, here's some things we want to start planting the seed for different legislators?
Marie and I are nodding our heads because we agree. I would say, because we've tried this before, and it really comes down to some staff time and being able to just move on these things. We put together a survey and sent it out to our legislators last week with really 2 or 3 questions. The first one was, because we do care, what are you working on for next session? And then the second question was giving them a list of about 8 to 10 kind of hot topics, from CPA and PILT to bonding to SNAP and Medicaid changes and kind of all those buckets. So we're already kind of anticipating what some of those responses would be. I think it's very smart for us to do the longer term stuff for sure. And I would point out, we were able to pull off a legislative delegation meeting with a good 2/3 of that group within a week of the county budget presentation. So it's a matter of pulling together a slide deck and a Zoom in time that works for the legislators. It's kind of the people power behind it, but does that answer your question?
No, absolutely, and very helpful, and I appreciate that we're kind of taking this focused approach and doing some of that long-term work now as well. A couple other questions I had for the, I know we have listed of the approach around what we're going to be supporting. Are there any things that we've identified that we might oppose as a county that we want to stop from happening?
I'm really happy you asked that, and I'm really happy you use the word oppose, because sometimes
We're not.
there's there's other words you can use too, right? Like defend
Mhm.
or, something like defend. We've had, in my 7 years, we've always had the word oppose sprinkled in our platform at least a couple of times. And I think as you know how we showed up last year on the proposed shifts to counties, we were certainly using the word oppose. I think it was oppose, comma, let us help you do this better, state. So, you know, one of our overarching themes for us is make sure counties are at the table if we really need to have that discussion about how to do things differently.
I would chime in and just say, there's some things where we could frame it in a opposition, or we can preserve current
Yeah.
circumstances that is like maintaining. So that's nuance is gonna be fleshed out throughout throughout our presentation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I have is, under the support bucket, seeing that we, you know, going from 98 to 22. Are there like tiers to the levels of even within support? Cause I know you have listed the responsibilities here, but like, are we still, gonna be, you know, throwing our name onto a list of different folks, a part of a coalition in support of X legislation? Maybe not be like a big lift where we will be doing, you know, developing tailored communications or providing supporting data, just adding the Ramsey County name and support. Is that something that will still be, um, uh, uh, adding a part of like the levels of support that we'll show for different, you know, legislative items?
Thank you for that question. Short answer, yes. In the back of our platform, we've always had a list of about 12 to 20 organizations. And with careful wording that says we support the agendas of the following, or the platforms of the following organizations, comma, unless we don't.
Yeah.
And that's always given us an out for, you know, we're not always gonna be in lockstep with AMC. We're not always gonna be in lockstep with the city of St. Paul. Pick on those two, because they're two of our primary partners. And Commissioner McGuire and I were talking through this yesterday a little bit, like, see how this year goes, and if there's a reason, we should have a honest discussion later about, was there something missing in our platform? Do we need to go back and add more to it? And we can come before you throughout session, give updates, and changes can be made. I think a lot of years commissioners elect to do that.
Yeah, and I love these questions because they go to sort of, yeah, how do we organize this work? How do we, you know, think about it? And everybody wants to see their issues on it. Even when you go to legislators, they say, well, don't you care about this? We go, oh yeah, we do care about that. It's just not on our list of priorities yet. So we have to, we'll talk about how we engage that, because we definitely support so much more work than we're gonna be itemizing here. And how we, you know, lend that support, as Jen says, as Director of Work says, you know, at the end, we say we support all these platforms, you know, of organizations, unless we don't. And so I think it's gonna be a dance, you know, how do we focus, but yet let them know we still support these other things. So we'll be looking at that as we do the next section and go over the topics. Commissioner Miller, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay, because I Commissioner didn't say.
Sure, yeah, I know we're asking this ahead of time and you're getting into these slides, but when I reviewed the slides prior to this, the preamble that you've given in these first few slides really helps me frame how to look at the next few slides. So I just kind of want to reflect on that a little bit. I appreciate the idea that the SNAP and Medicaid cost shifts to local government is separate from the current shutdown disruptions. And there are other kinds of changes that are happening that have happened at the last state legislature that we're still dealing with that are separate from the current disruptions. And so that feeds into this in the idea of sometimes the statements that we're going to see on the upcoming slides may be more of a mission or a value statement. And when I initially read it, I thought, well, that's very vague. But with County Manager Becker and with you all putting it in perspective, the idea that we need to be ready to adapt to any and all solutions while balancing multiple partnerships means that we're opening the doors to say, this is, if the ground is shaking underneath us, these are things that affect us. But there's going to be lots of people who are going to have lots of ideas. And when the right one comes to our door, we want to be open to it. We don't want to be locked into a particular plan before we get into the conversation. So I just really appreciate that. And my question was similar to to what Commissioner McGuire or Mr. McMurtry had said, which is, we oftentimes, we all as a county and individually as commissioners get all sorts of, hey, will you sign on to this? Will you give your support to that? Where does the county stand on that? Some of them are vague, like, gun legislation, smart, gun safety or something would be very specific to a bill jacket, right? Or a bill number or something. And I guess the question I have is, at some point in here, and it doesn't need to be today, for some of us who are new to this process, it would be great to have some ideas as to how we collectively as a body and then individually as commissioners can be addressing some of those requests so that we are consistent in that acknowledging that there may be 1,000 things that we agree on with all sorts of people, but in order to be effective, we have to be focused and say, and here are the 10 we're putting weight behind. But of course, those are things to go forth and do with our stamp and blessing, but this is where we're putting energy. I think that's really helpful, and I appreciate your strategy you're putting together to keep us focused.
Thank you very much. Okay.
All right, moving on. Slides 8 and 9. We just wanted to show this one to kind of help lay the groundwork, but as we walk through the next couple of slides, you're going to see exclamation points, which are really those pursue items and super high priorities. Those aren't meant to give you anxiety or say danger ahead, but rather, we've really tried to put them through a lens of asking kind of two questions. What is the impact? Is it critical to Ramsey County services and operations? And also, what's the viability? Does it have a chance within this current political environment, this particular legislative session with the fiscal conditions? So starting off, we're going to just walk you through some of the bonding, what's going on right now. As a reminder, 2026 is a bonding year, although there's no guarantee of a bonding bill. On October 7th, the county board approved 2 bonding priorities and ranked those, so we were able to submit them into the MMB system. Those requests were based on alignment to strategic priorities, racial equity, impact, and opportunity, the project having a clear vision, previous momentum, legislator buy-in and support, and then external factors such as community input and competing requests. The 2 that were advanced were the Park at River's Edge at 20 million. That bill was introduced last year by Senator Pappas and Representative Perez Vega, both of who represent that area. And then Aldrich Arena at the new number is $17 million. So that's why it's in red. The request we'd be making of the state is 8.5 million. And that's been introduced by Representative Peter Fisher and Senator Tuja. Okay, so that's where we start with that. Quick update. We were told there'll be a Senate bonding tour next week, which is an unfortunate date because people are at impact and a lot of other things. But that's okay. This is Senator Sandy Pappas's bonding committee. She's of course the chief author, which is a great spot to be in. They visited it before. They had a particular request that was interesting. They wanted to see it from up high. So we'll be showing them a walk out along the bridge to look over at the big hole, as they call it, but really highlighting what an opportunity it is for the county and the county's investment and how it sort of just fits all into the downtown strategy and vibe people are hoping for. The House has their version of that following up in a couple of weeks on November 13th and 14th. The 13th is the Aldrich Arena will be a presentation. It's not going to be an actual site visit. But same with the Park at River's Edge, that presentation will be on the 14th, which is a Friday, in a downtown location here.
Madam
Yeah,
Chair.
yes, Commissioner Jean.
For the Park at River's Edge, I believe it was maybe 2 cycles or a cycle ago that we received funding for planning dollars. Do we have an update for that?
Yes. I'm not the best person to give that, Commissioner, right now.
Yeah, maybe we just get an update like through email, like a
Yeah.
memo about it, so that if we are asked about it, we know like where that's at.
And so folks know, Commissioners Moran and you, Commissioner Jean, are likely to be our point people there. Commissioner Moran's giving a welcome, but we'll have talking points for you. Staff will be there to explain how we've spent that money thus far. Because that's a good example. They gave us 6.2 million in, I think, 2023 or 2022, and it's on us to be spending that down and doing the prep work behind it. So, thank you.
And Director Rick, just because this did come before the board, it was as a request, because we needed to present our priorities to the state Office of Management and Budget. And for their planning purposes. And there are some other projects that we care about, but these two roads to the top, we didn't really have a robust discussion about that at our last workshop. And I said I would give members just a chance to, and if we needed to discuss this, I mean, they are the two that we submitted to MMB. And just give us I know we don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but this is the time that we would have to discuss this prioritization. So I don't know if you want to say, and then maybe do you want to ask your question and then have them respond? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to address that.
Yeah, I just want to talk about that just a little
A
bit.
year ago, when I looked at the list with our exec team, there were only 4 or 5 things.
Yeah.
And I will say of the 3 ones that are not on the list currently, they were not to the level of meeting those criteria. I will say, there was a public health building, which I feel like there's a lot of work around how we deliver holistic services rather than just asking for a public health building that we hadn't fully thought through, like a one Ramsey County model. So I think for me, it was more the clear vision. I think that was the same with the possible juvenile detention alternative center. I mean, I just don't think we had the vision. And so to me, it didn't make sense to spend a lot of energy talking about things that we weren't exactly sure on what we were trying to do, because that's gonna burn a lot of energy and it takes away eyes on the things we really, really know we want and meet all the criteria. So those are the 2 that I can remember. Maybe there was one other one. Was there another one? There was the public health, the juvenile. Was there one more?
Just
Rice Creek.
Oh, right, which we already did move on. Yeah, so that's why I didn't even bring, like, we've invested some of our own dollars.
Into it.
And so I think if you want to talk about Rice Creek Commons, that probably be the one that I think has the most reason for a discussion potentially. But in terms of the other 2, so we didn't have a deep list, I will say, a year ago. Would you, am I being
I think
correct?
that's
Okay,
good.
I only had seen 5 things when I remember last year.
And I think that's just, well, truly helpful for me. I mean, it was an internal kind of a push, forward. We need things to be ready. We need us to be really secure that that's what we really want to ask for, because we're limited in our ability to ask. We made great statements about Rice Creek Commons and our support for that. We have not wavered in any of that support. We've actually put in more of our own money, and it doesn't deter us from going back for more dollars from the state on that. It was just at this time, these were the 2 that rose to the top. So I just want to make sure we have all that on the record of where we came up with these. And Commissioner McMurtry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For parts, as we were said, what role are we hoping the city of St. Paul to play in this strategy? Because as we think about the work of revitalizing downtown, this is an important piece of it. So would love to hear more about what that engagement is, how bought in is the city, and how they will play a role in, trying to get this through.
I can help with that one too, and then maybe if Carrie wants to chime in too, or Commissioner Ortega even, but I think it is a part of the Downtown Alliance's overall downtown strategy. It is one of the 3 main pillars is River's Edge, and those are all partners. The city is a partner in that Downtown Alliance strategy. I will say Carrie and I, at least every table we've been at, we've been advocating for a riverfront investment strategy that would be comprehensive all the way from the conversations around the arena, all the way to even work that we see happening at Union Depot. I mean, to me, it's the whole riverfront. So Carrie, I don't know if you have more to add, but that's the way we've been trying to engage, is really thinking about the bigger picture, and the city being one of the targets.
Yeah, commissioners, I think that's spot on in terms of this, we see as the first in a larger kind of comprehensive riverfront vision. And so they have really been at the helm in terms of the river balcony vision, and once realized, I think that could be a tremendous piece of infrastructure for downtown, especially as we start to increase residential density. However, this is the first kind of piece of that puzzle to drive a lot of investment and a lot of really destination driven activity to support the kind of comprehensive vision. I will say, however, the city of St. Paul will be a tremendous partner as we really start to prepare the plan sets. We're going to have to work with them on, you know, potentially environmental review. We're going to have to work with them on the construction documents to get the release of permits, and continue to partner on, in terms of like a traffic study and ensuring that we're all in alignment there. But they have been such a really vocal partner in support of this vision for years. You know, when we went to the state, you know, several years ago, the state invested $6.2 million into the design of this project. So they're already a stakeholder. They're already an invested partner. Now we're kind of coming back to say, help us, you know, bring this over the finish line. But the city of St. Paul at that time, they were at all of our tours and the mayor spoke, and they've been right alongside of us. And so we appreciate their support, you know, as it moves forward as well.
I'm really glad that Commissioner McMurtry asked about this, because when Commissioner Moran and I met with Senator Pappas, you know, that was her question, like, okay, this is a great project. We need you to come with St. Paul on this. I mean, St. Paul needs to be there, advocating for this, so I'm hoping it's one of the top of their list too. Like, it would be great if we could go in with it being at the top of both of our lists, and I would hope that they would see the value of that. It would really help on so many things, and I don't know if we can get there, but I know they support it. I just know that it would be really helpful. Yeah, Commissioner McForte.
I met with the mayor
Okay.
last week
Okay.
and I left the conversation that the city was gonna support the riverfront as the number one.
So, great. It's a really good discussion, and we need to have it. The chair, you know, the chair of bonding, Senator Pappas, you know, well, that will really be helpful. Commissioner McMurtry.
One very quick follow-up. Do we know where they are in the process of putting together their legislative platform? I know there was a late approval this past year.
Right. Thanks for that, Commissioner. They did have a significant delay last year in approving their 2025 platform. I think we talk to them regularly, them being the government relations staff, and I would say if we pass ours on November 19th, they're looking at more of a mid-December approval. So there's time to check their work, if you will, but we've had conversations that line up with what Commissioner Ortega just said about the mayor's support.
I appreciate this. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for all your work on this. This is a big deal. Okay, and now Commissioner Jevon Singh.
Oh, just very quickly,
Yeah.
just to say, you know, I really appreciate, I was absent in Montgomery when we had the bonding conversation in front of the full board, and I just want to reiterate my appreciation for the commitment that Ramsey County has to the Rice Creek Commons, that we have the momentum to keep the project moving forward during this biennium, which is the key thing. So we will keep that project moving forward, and as that moves forward, if there is a need for an ask, then we'll bring that back in another cycle. But right now, it all keeps going forward, and we're excited to see projects being developed throughout the county. And I think that's the most important thing. We need to keep all of our communities growing strong. So thank you for making sure that was really clear in how we're putting our priorities together.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay.
Great discussion. Thank you. Moving on, next couple of slides are grids, so there's a lot of words, but bear with me. I think there's some exciting stuff here. So this starts us off with sharing with you more about the items that came through the LPATs have met you know, the various lenses we're putting on this work, and are things that we think we need to pursue this coming session. What that means is we take the lead as staff in working with the bill sponsor, like I said, all of the things. We may co-lead in some situations, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but you know, often these are issues that either only affect the county or no other entity is necessarily leading. And frankly, these take up at least the most of our time and resources, at least on the front end. So the first one, we updated this particular bullet, after last week's great board workshop about CPA and PILT. Right now, we're moving ahead with the Capital Complex County Host Program, for that kind of program or that kind of approach to fixing some of our, CPA needs and whatnot. I will say there's, the work's kind of starting on all of that. Commissioner Moran met with, the chair of the tax committee, Representative Gomez. Her staff have reached out to me to just kind of get more information. So, what we do is take that slide deck and the right staff and just kind of figure out, the next steps forward, because a lot of that interim work needs to happen before the session starts. The next one on there, would make amendments to a special chapter of law called 383A. There's a handful of counties, and we're one of them, that get their own chapter of statutes, and ours is 383A. This would do three things: clean up some human resources related language for the county manager and the alignment or organizational alignment, work on some small contract threshold language for certain businesses, increasing that threshold to 500,000. And then right now Ramsey County has an environmental response fund. I think that's on the mortgage. It's a mortgage tax, and Hennepin has that authority too. There's a sunset on that, I believe in 2028. So that's important to get done in this year or next year. So we're looking to work on those three.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner DeBerg.
we're defending it, right? Like, we want to keep that.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay, yeah, how it's worded is just extend or eliminate sunset, so it just
Right.
wasn't clear what our
Right.
position was there.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Think of it this way: if the statute is sunsetting, that means it goes away after a certain year. Eliminating the sunset would make it,
Oh,
good. Yeah, make it permanent or extend it another 5 years or something.
okay.
Interestingly, Hennepin's in the same boat as us, so we're kind of, at least as staff, walking that, sharing information as we move through our platforms to make sure that things are lining up. And I would point out, I know of a county up north who's interested in getting the same authority. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner McMurtry and then Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad to hear the conversations are already happening around the PILT program that we're proposing. Out of curiosity, I don't know if Commissioner Moran has shared with you some of the takeaways from our conversation with Representative Gomez, just so we can get a sense of how we need to go about our approach. Do we need to be more aggressive? Are they open to it? Like, how did these initial conversations go, if she shared it with you?
I would want to go back and review my notes. Commissioner Moran and I had a good conversation, and I felt really good about her doing that early work. After we talked, there is a cost to it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the hard part. So we'll leave it at that. I always feel better about where we're at in the House, Commissioner, because we don't have a Ramsey County person on the tax committee. Not that you have to have one there, but it's really helpful. And we've got some folks on the House side. I'll mention their names: Representative Liz Lee, Representative Athena Hollins, even Representative Dave Pinto. They've all been on that tax committee at different times, and it's just really helpful to have people on those committees who are around those conversations. And I think long-term, that's an area we could be encouraging some of our senators as new people come on board or whatever, or people want to change committee assignments to, we need to grow some of our muscle in that space, not just for taxes, but that's a good conversation for later.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Miller.
Quickly, do you know what the current small contract threshold is now? If we're asking for it to be raised to 500,000, do we know what it is now?
250,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Jean on that point, because I got Commissioner Gibbons, yeah, if it's on that one.
not that point.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I'll wait.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, just a quick question, just to say that following our workshop on the Capital Complex County Host Program, not to overstate anybody's position, but I've had some interest from municipalities within the community to say, because it's their residents who are being taxed, their property
Mhm.
taxes that they're getting hit. They're
Yeah.
interested in learning more about what this would mean, and perhaps there's some natural allies there as well.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner John.
Thank you. Following on that, the capital complex, county host program, I thought last week, when this was discussed, I thought it's great, very innovative and just a different angle and look at, making a case for Ramsey County. So I really like that and appreciated that. My other question then is just around knowing that the city of St. Paul also had like a PILT item last year that Representative Hollins authored. How does this fit in with us, as a low level of like government? And also, the city and also the school district,
Right.
fit into this?
Right. I'll answer the first part of your question. Commissioner Moran brought that same thing up, and I actually did 20 minutes of legislative bill search history, which is not that hard to do. But I couldn't find, Representative Hollins did not introduce anything for the city of St. Paul on, to give them a PILT or a pilot or anything like that. I know Hollins was interested in it,
Okay,
and that might be what Representative Gomez was remembering.
okay,
Keep in mind, like 5,500 bills got introduced
Yeah.
last year, and then some things are just kind of percolating out there and don't actually get introduced, but are ideas that I think Hollins has been supportive of that in the past. So that answers part of your question.
Yep.
The other part was,
working with those at the other layers of government, right? Like, it's within those, yeah, it's within the city of St. Paul, it's within the St. Paul Public School District. Yeah,
those are good questions. I certainly don't have the answers, and I know there's some things that have been being tossed around as staff, but we should think about that later.
We should for sure think about that, how we can put another down on.
Right.
And then part of that would go to them, yeah, I don't know, it really didn't come, yeah. I guess I'm gonna throw that to the team that's working on this, like, how do we think about that? Yeah, okay, Commissioner Ortega.
I just wanna follow up with something you just said. So that cities were interested in the PILT. No,
No, just, again, not wanting to overstate, just because this was a novel new way of approaching this. The idea that I had some of the folks just saying, we're interested in learning more about this, because if we can have different revenue that takes burden off of our residential property tax owners, even if the money is coming to the county, hopefully it will relieve property tax to their residents as well, because they all get the same bill, and they want to make sure that is a less burden on their residents, whether it's to us or to them, the idea that that's helpful to all of us collectively. They just wanted to learn more about it. I was just throwing that into space, that let's bring our city partners along in the journey of the development of this.
well, I think that's a very good point, because we are always St. Paul centric. And we ignore, quite frankly, the legislative power of our other cities. And then when we come to our delegation, yeah, they entertain us, but it is in the, if they could exert stronger influence. My question then is, how much, and I know we're in the seventh inning here, with the legislation coming up. But I think we should put it in our program to educate them over time. Because they have equal weight. You put them all together, they have at the very minimum equal weight to St. Paul.
Right.
And we need some strong champions. And we don't know where they come from. We need to cover the waterfront. I think we've ignored that in the past, and I just think we should pay more attention.
Sure. Just
Yeah.
building off of that, and it goes to that conversation of not only the allies, but they share in the additional cost of services through our sheriff's office. They share in the burden collectively. Everybody, every resident of Ramsey County shares in that burden. And so how can we make sure that they all have a voice to bring this forward?
And I will say that these conversations do occur at the Ramsey County League of Local Government, because we know we have, and actually mainly suburban members are there. City of St. Paul has their members, but they don't always send representation, but the suburban cities are very strong in the Ramsey County League of Local Governments, and they know the power of what they have. And we've been doing collective action work, because we said we can have a stronger voice together at the Capitol. And that's why when we do get our agenda, we should present it to the League of Local Governments, but that is an entity where we can talk to more than one, but it's totally true that we have power out there that we need to access
And
more.
while it's true that we
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
League of Local Governments, but it's like the effort Mike Chung put into the HRA.
Mhm.
That's very different than just
Mhm.
Yes.
that big
For sure.
dialogue at the local league that sort of gets lost.
Yeah,
But just, you know, and
Yeah, no,
maybe even getting city councils to actively
Mhm.
participate
support our
in it.
issues. Yeah, I agree. No, you're right.
Chair?
Yes,
And
Commissioner
along
Jefferson.
that way, I would also say that, there's a strong contingent of my constituents in the northern suburbs who have actively been reaching out to talk about the regressive nature of property tax and wanting to be part of the solution to find other ways to take the burden off of our residential homeowners. And so there are those advocacy groups too, that have their collective power, not only because they are other voices, but they're connected to statewide advocacy groups to move beyond local legislators to talk about what that means for St. Paul and what that means for Ramsey County as a whole, as the home of the state's capital, and what that means for the state. So, I mean, I think we have to be really strategic, because this is a novel idea, so we have to make sure to bring people along on it.
Excellent point. Yeah, those good Isaiah's, League of Women Voters. I mean, all of these organizations would be good allies for us. So thank you. And you're right, to be more deliberate with our cities. The league is a starting place, you know, just to get it out, you know, but it's also.
I'm not
but we need
knocking
to-
the league
No,
either, but
but
it's
we
not the
need,
same as
but
like what Mike Chung
attending
did.
attending
Yeah.
each city council meeting. Yeah. Okay, great. So we're, unfortunately, we have a noon stop, right? So we'll
Get
try
through
to, but yeah. Okay, great.
And just, we are on the city managers.
Are you trying to get rid of us?
No, I'd stay here till 2:00. I literally love this stuff. We're on deck with the city managers, I think, on November 13th or 20th, Ling's meeting. So those conversations happen.
Those kind of.
Yeah, great suburban legislators. We work with those. I just want you to know, we do work with those folks. Just a couple more important things on this slide. The third explanation, I'm calling it a bullet. The third bullet down deals with the Minnesota African American Family Preservation and Child Welfare Disproportionality Act. As you probably know, Hennepin and Ramsey are what we call early implementers. We don't say pilot because this is work we're doing. Early implementers of this. We were each given $2.5 million. I think staff is asking us, and both Hennepin and Ramsey are doing this, asking that we get a funding extension for that in this coming session. That would give us another year or two to just spread out those dollars. I don't see that as controversial, and but that's an important thing that's in our pursue items here. Commissioner Moran does know about it. It's been brought up a couple of times this fall.
Okay, Commissioner Miller.
Lynn, can we just get an update on that? Maybe from staff about
On the
how-
project?
Yeah,
Sure.
how it's going
Yeah.
and where the dollars are, what's been spent, and
Yep.
just, I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
And the last one on here, I just want you to know about is establishing a statewide homelessness funding program. The key part of this is creating a separate pot of money, if you will, for counties. We've been at this a couple of years. This might be our third year. having a bill, and last year we have a bill, we brought forward with Hennepin and Ramsey doing most of the work in this space, but you know what, there are dollars at, DHS or DCYF, one of those two agencies. And I'm not sure why this is fading there. In short, it puts Ramsey and Hennepin in a space where they're competing with the service providers, which we do. Ramsey does make application for those dollars. Hennepin does less of that. So one of our approaches to this was, well, if they just had a separate pot of money for counties to be doing this work, that would at least take away some of that, and it would acknowledge the important work counties do in leading in this space, especially in the urban core counties that Hennepin and Ramsey are. That bill is still alive from last year. We had hearings in both the House and the Senate last year. I don't know what the chances are of us getting additional hearings or whatever, but I think it's, we think it's really important to at least keep on the list for now, and Hennepin's doing the same thing. So we wanted that in front of you for today. And then the last one on this list, I would just point out, looks different because it doesn't have an exclamation point on it right now. This idea of adjusting the adult protection funding allocation formula came up through the LPATs. Amy Waslowick is our point person on this. You know, the formula allocates funding for cases that are referred to and then cases that get screened in. There's more funding that comes through from the state for cases that get screened in, but Ramsey gets a lot of referrals. So we're interested in seeing that 75-25 split shake out differently, maybe 50-50, but we're not picking up on that from other counties. So that's one right now where I would say we're doing that interim work with the other counties to see if this is an issue for others. And I can't tell you right now whether we know it would be like a major pursue item for next session or not.
Is this in human services?
It would be in human services.
Community and human services. So this is adult protection. Is there a word? It feels like there's a word missing, but maybe we just say in human services, adult protection for what? I first went to corrections, but it's not a corrections formula. It's a human services formula.
Right.
Okay, well, maybe we just need a little more explanation.
Like child
Like me.
protection, but adult
It's
protection.
adult protection, yeah, okay. Okay, so then that makes more sense. I just haven't heard it. Commissioner Jennings saying,
Yeah, to say somebody can speak about.
Other services?
okay.
Is this for vulnerable adults?
Yes.
Oh, vulnerable.
This is for,
Thank you.
yeah, so I will just say that, as somebody who used to refer to folks, so if somebody is identified as a vulnerable adult, which means they may need to be assessed to be access additional services, or to be able to have somebody step in if there's self-neglect or family neglect or anything like that, to make sure that we at first level have that assessment so that they have somebody who's taking a look at that. And I know, having been an elder service provider, a lot of times that was a call to a list to nowhere. It's because the ability for the county to keep up with those referrals based on the funding available was not responsive enough if somebody's truly in a precarious situation. So I appreciate that this is on here. Am I summarizing what's captured in these few little words here?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna ask Amy to stay as we move into the next slide here, just because these first ones are.
Oh, yeah, Commissioner
One
Jennings.
point. You made a comment on the homeless, that for now we're keeping it kind of thing. I think that's one that we gotta have there. We need the state to be responsible for this issue, period. And I know we've been saying it for a very long time, decades it seems. But we can't throw it away. I mean, we gotta stick to that. I just wanna, I wouldn't take it off the list even if we weren't making traction, just because it's what's gotta be done.
Thank you for that. Moving on to our next slide, we shift to a leading advocate item. This is an instance where another county, coalition, or association is pursuing the bill or leading opposition. As a leading advocate, we would provide active advocacy efforts, but not be the primary lead. The first three on here all have to do with human services work. the bottom, the one that says modernize state human services systems is getting a lot of attention and traction right now. I'm seeing some head nods, but you know, AMC and Maxa have sort of, will be kind of the leaders on that one. I know we'll be playing a super strong advocacy role in that, but I just wanted to highlight that for you. And then the last bullet on there, preserve or increase formula-based transportation funding for Ramsey County. Commissioner McMurtry, that's the example where we don't use the word oppose. We have chosen preserve our current funding. This was a pretty active topic during the special session, as you remember, and we're pretty confident it'll be back in some way, shape, or form for next year.
And this isn't just for Ramsey County, this is for counties and
Right.
metro counties or something, right? So, so it's a little more general, it's not a specific bill just for us.
No.
Right.
And but I don't know that we need to say that, but it looks like it's just our own bill, but yeah, I'll just note here that it's for all counties.
Well, I work for Ramsey County, so
Yeah.
I want you to
right.
know.
Yeah, I know, yeah, right, okay. Yeah, Commissioner Jorgensen.
Yeah, I just want to ask, I do appreciate that there are other lists, other topics on this list beyond the ones that are exclamation pointed as we're saying here. I know that the increased access to secure mental health treatment options in the East Metro is something that was discussed the last time we were all gathered, and I know that there has been some collective work, cross sector work on proposals on what this would mean to make sure that there are different levels of care options, and I'm just wondering, do we have a lead agency that's taking this up that we're trying to you know, draft behind, or where is that?
And I can speak to that, Madam Chair, Commissioner. So we've been in this conversation for quite a while. It bubbled up from the quality of life work that the Downtown Alliance had brought together almost a year ago. We had some general frameworks from working closely with Judge Carey. We now have John Choi, Deputy Mayor, Tincher, Rick Moran's been involved in it. We brought it, or I sent it over to the East Metro Mental Health Roundtable that's led by Regions. I just don't want to lead on it because I don't necessarily think we want to operate it. And so obviously, I think we have to walk a fine line to saying this is a big gap that affects our continuum, our part in the overall continuum, but we need to figure out who really should be doing this work. And maybe that's one of the biggest challenges, you know, so.
Well, as a follow-up to that,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, I don't, diverge from your strategy
Yeah.
there. My question is, this is the time as other entities are formulating their agendas and priorities, and I'm wondering who may be our ally within the mental health legislative network, who could be floating this up through their collective space, because it's that kind of a group, or other groups who will either oppose it or support it or nuance it or rock tumble it into a place that fits into their
Yeah.
collective agenda. So if we're not taking the lead, can we not still try to find a home for somebody who is going to take this work forward?
And I'm hoping that East Metro Roundtable is a start. I mean, we sent it over to Roger Meyer. I think another thing would be, you know, for you, because your background in this, to talk to Commissioner Moran and think about strategies there. She's kind of been the one that has been most interested. Particularly this bubbled up because she was asking me, do we have anything in our back pocket if there was a special session? And that's when we kind of re-earthed this again. So we do have a proposal, it's a one pager, but we don't have necessarily the next steps of like who would lead, and you're spot on there.
Yeah, and the reason why I even say that this early on is because within the mental health community and the provider space of a full spectrum of care, there's a lot of conversation of, you know, where do you put your efforts, just like we're having the conversations. And so I also want us to be in that place of humility of coming and saying, you all are talking about the spectrum of care all of the time. How do we add our concerns and need to that broader discussion and respectfully, like, you know, listen and follow and adapt and align, as we had stated earlier, to make sure we are in an ecosystem of care, so to speak, right? So that we don't get it, so we're not in opposition to our very own partners just for not being part of the conversation.
And one reason why I had Jen and her team write this pretty broad is because it's a policy year. You know, I don't know if CFO Kutzer remembers, but she was brought in a meeting quite early last year when we first started, and we kind of got somebody who used to be a commissioner at DHS. You might remember that, Alex. I don't know if you remember, but there might have been like like a licensing change or a reimbursement change. Like there might be some other things that could start the path, even if it's not like someone's gonna fund a brand new treatment center. Does that make sense? Like
Exactly.
we're trying to identify what are all the barriers that makes people sort of adverse to, why hasn't this gap been filled? And maybe in a policy year, if by bringing it to the right tables, some people could help us with the right order of operations and even some policy changes. So this is why it's written a little bit broad.
Well, I appreciate that, and I guess because sometimes you have similar factions who are trying to get at the same ends through
Sure.
different ways, and I just want us to go with, just put that out there, that we are in a stance of adaptability and alignment on these topics. So I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
All right, everyone, I recognize we have 10 minutes, and keep going. So. Slide 12 is support items. This really is, still continues to have some top priorities. Little County will play a less active role in advancing them. Time and resources are invested in support items as needed or as requested basis. The first one sort of piggybacks on what we just talked about with mental health and behavioral health needs of the community. The public safety and reducing gun violence is on there. A downtown biggie, if you will, is supporting the catalyzing underutilized buildings tax credit. That a group called Rethos, which is more of a historical preservation nonprofit, has been the lead on that. The fourth one's a no-brainer, protecting counties from increased costs related to SNAP and MA. We know we're gonna be super active in that space. And then the final exclamation point there is another Minnesota African American Family Preservation Child Welfare Disproportionality Act item, and this is a policy thing that it seems that everyone is lockstep on. And that would be moving the case review responsibility from counties to the state. And I know that's part of AMC and other counties platform as well.
What are the chances that that's gonna happen? Do you think it's a controversial, or
Might be controversial for the,
because the
Policy.
the state would have to pay for that review then? Commissioner McMurtry.
I just wanted to get, so this is there a reason why this isn't under the pursue portion versus propose?
because everyone else is, I'll answer for Amy here, but she's been doing the work, but because everyone's working on it, we don't have to be the lead.
Gotcha.
So this, just so you're clear, Commissioner, this would be spelled out in the materials that we have. So when we have our delegation meeting, when we're talking about, this, you all would have talking points on it. We don't think we're gonna have to be the ones to, lead it.
Right.
And if something changes and we do, we can
And I mean,
adapt.
someone else that we trust is leading on it.
Yeah.
I mean, because AMC and others are leading on it, maybe. That would be a good way to help us understand, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Madam
Oh, yeah,
Chair.
Commissioner.
Yes, I appreciate these. I also think that it fits with what we have been talking about in terms of like priorities of where we should lead and where other organizations can lead. What would also help us in articulating this is also having a specific county impact.
Right.
Because it may also impact the county differently than other counties. For example, the transit funding piece. Chair Tega and I had a chance to meet with Representative Cagle about the transportation funding and also what they would like to, what she would like to do and work on is, sometimes the formula as it's being created does not, it disadvantages Ramsey County. And in this case, Ramsey County is like really small, and Director Isaacson was very clear to point out that, when they create policies or like rules and formulas, it doesn't advantage Ramsey County in receiving those dollars, even though it's like either well-intentioned or not the impact and similar to CPA is what it creates is just less funding for Ramsey County. So we should really have a clear analysis of how some of these impact Ramsey County.
Thank you.
Right, all right.
We wanted to have a quick slide on here. County Attorney Choi often has his a specific short platform that we include in our platform, but they have a small lobbying contract. And just wanted to put these in front of you. The top two deal with child support. The bottom one is an interesting one. I think we all pay 50 cents into the state auto theft fund when we pay our insurance. There's some collective efforts to increase that fee so that there's more protections around auto theft.
I think we pay 50 cents every 6 months, so it's $1 a year, I think, yeah.
You. Explain the first one.
So essentially what happens now is there are automatic cost of living adjustments. And those don't take into consideration someone's like individual circumstances. So the idea would be to do a more routine review where you're actually looking at someone's individual circumstances and using that information to decide what the child support amount is gonna be as opposed to just doing an automatic cost of living increase. So for example, if someone lost their job, you wouldn't wanna have an automatic cost of living increase because you'd wanna take into consideration their specific circumstances.
So blanket. A review replaces an automatic cost of living.
Yep.
Blanket. So. And who's gonna do this?
That's the Ramsey County Attorney's Office.
No, who's gonna do the reviews?
Yeah,
And
They
That's
administer the
our
program as
CAO.
well.
Yep, our CAO does all child
Yeah, they
support
want
stuff.
this. They wanna do the review.
They've got the money to do that? Right.
I don't know, something doesn't gel.
Are they currently doing that now?
They have I mean, this is why they're trying to change the statute, is because they have a automatic cost of living adjustment. So this is their item, they wanna be doing these reviews because they think it'll make the system more fair and it'll also taking into consideration people's individual circumstances, is also more likely to get people to comply. If they know that they're doing a more thorough review of their circumstances and looking at their actual circumstances versus just, here's a number that we're just gonna throw in there for cost.
Okay, let me ask you this, is there so there's an automatic cost of living and I lost my job, okay? Isn't there a process by which I could appeal that? Now?
I don't know if there's an appeal process for cost of living adjustments. I think those are just things that automatically happen. But I'm
Automatically
not
done?
the expert on that, so. There's. That's a good RCA.
Maybe we could get, ask the county attorney to just send us
For
a
sure.
note on this so that we have some more.
yeah,
clarity.
cause my,
Commissioner Jefferson.
so I'm following, my questions are the same, is that, not to say that having a more nuanced, response to a family situation isn't, ideal. But I just wanna make sure that if the wording that somebody can raise their hand and say, I'd like a review rather than the automatic, or if all of a sudden administratively, everybody now and how often will have to be reviewed versus just the cost of living. What is the administrative cost of that? Is that something that is a county attorney's function? Is that somehow in social services or a case management? Like who's doing that and where's the money to administratively handle that, I guess?
Exactly.
I think those are really important. So it's not to say that the goal here isn't great, but I'd love to hear more about that.
We can do that, and
We can
we're
get
gonna, this is a county attorney's office platform, we have 4 more pages to go before our meeting.
Just quickly, why do we not have one for our sheriff's office on what their
They have
priorities are?
not submitted anything to us.
So their priorities cannot be approved when it comes before our board?
They haven't given us anything.
Okay, great, great to know. Thank you for
Just
having
jump on
that.
that.
Be reminded.
The county attorney's office definitely participated in our LPATS process, which is where these 3
The
things
sheriff's office
forward.
did not.
They did, they just didn't have.
They didn't have anything. I did place a call yesterday to let them know about the slide deck that the kind of this RCAO had a couple of things. So I would just say for now, it would
Okay.
appear they're not. Sheriff Fletcher was at the Capitol a lot with us last year, so, he got some funding together, so.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
So I'm gonna do a time check here because we have this BOMA meeting and I think we're gonna be a little late for it if we wanna finish this, or we have to schedule another meeting for this. So I'm gonna ask what your preference, what you're thinking we need to do on this.
We gotta get to the Bowman,
Yeah.
we have a whole day.
We have a full agenda, so do you wanna have it, do we need? When, I don't know, I mean, how are you all feeling? Do you need to discuss any of these other items, or are you? Well, I would like to spend at least 5 more minutes for you to just go over these, then we'll adjourn. And then if we have to have another meeting, but I'm nervous to bring this to a vote if we have lingering questions that we need to have another workshop on. I'd like to know that, maybe,
Maybe just a written,
yeah.
from the department's written follow-ups.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
we
take
can
your
write it.
questions and we'll write them.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay.
Let's spend 5 more minutes, taking questions, you'll get them back to us. You can go through this really quickly, the rest of the slide deck. Okay. The rest of the slide deck, and then we can ask our questions, and if we feel like we're not ready for a vote, we'll have to have another meeting, but I'm hoping we can.
I think the next steps, I mean, minus the federal platform, which maybe you should spend a minute on, I
Sure.
think the rest could be part of those written updates,
Yeah,
or I
this
can
is
talk to you about them in the
Yeah,
one-on-ones I have with you, because
feel like you
it's
could
really
just-
around the commissioner engagement, which,
Mhm.
I think you guys are tracking with the general direction we're
Yeah.
looking for, so maybe we can just do 2 minutes on this. I hate to have that whole board down there waiting for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Real quick, thank you everyone for that. On the federal platform, there were way less ideas that came from our LPATS discussion. That is not a bad thing. But as we were getting closer to this board workshop, we were like, we still have to have a federal platform. The first bullet is where we've been super active over the last 6 months, defending against funding cuts and finding bipartisan ways to work with other counties across the country, largely through NACO, on this work. We came up with the following, the dashes, if you will, on there, based off of the NACO agenda, and then some of the key legislation, such as Senator Smith has a bill on affordable housing and streamlining the COC, continuum of care funding process that made its way into a bipartisan bill called Road to Housing. We called that out on here. The Min Choices work is some that I think Scott County led on last year. But our recommendation to you is that we put together a federal platform based on these priorities that we're active on that really line up with Ramsey County work and write you a federal platform for that. The goal would be to pass this, go to legislative committee of the whole on the 4th, and then final passage on the 19th. I would point out, we don't really need a federal platform for January 1, the same way we should have our state platform done and ready to
So
go.
we could wait on this if we needed to.
Yeah, but
And, okay, I appreciate that. Thank you for that. We'll get some questions. But I do, before people leave, want to stress that we don't have a board meeting next week, and the Monday following next week is our District 10 meeting that we should all do our best to be at. And we want to do priorities. I really wanted to talk about what we think our priorities should be on that. We have the list for District 10 of what, yeah.
District 10 is the metro counties. It meets on November 3rd in the morning, 8 to 12.
Really important meeting.
There is not an official ballot out yet from AMC staff. Kudos to Amy Waslick. We got a draft copy of 12 items that we're gonna be asked as Ramsey County leaders to identify 5. Typically, the legislative team and legislative committee work with staff, and we come up with maybe 3 or 4 of those votes and make recommendations that we would like to see you vote for 3 or 4 of those, and then maybe you get a freebie one. Of course, those are just recommendations, but they're what we see as being the most important for Ramsey County. We looked at the list. I think our priority should be very human services focused with for our work at the Capitol through AMC next year. But if that's okay, we could work with Commissioner McGuire and Commissioner Moran over the course of next week. I think that ballot will come out officially. We can figure out who's going to be attending and make sure you've got the info you need to make those votes, if that's okay.
I mean, I think we're powerful as a block, we're powerful if we combine our votes in a way that's helpful for that. So great. Yeah, let's just to note that that's a really important meeting. If you're not gonna be there, let us know. We'll have to have staff there we get so many votes as a. And I know there were some questions, if you wanna get them on the table, you can get answers to them, yeah.
The
Yeah.
very important one that we don't miss is just about the Medicaid reimbursement eligibility when they're in our correction facility or jail.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's super important. Those are like the big driving costs for us in, in operating that. So that should be included.
Thank you so much,
And,
Commissioner.
my only is just continuing the conversation from last time is on CPFs and where we are on selecting what projects we want to move forward to the delegation.
Great.
And then knowing, just knowing we're not gonna have time to go through all the slides, but on slide number 25, when we were talking about including community partners, I just would really like to highlight that we shouldn't just focus on our governmental partners. But that we've been doing a lot of larger work within Ramsey County to showing up and to do discussions with our broader ecosystem of community providers and advocacy groups. And then to make sure that we are identifying, for like in hunger solutions to sustainability around SNAP benefits, there's a huge community of providers outside of our governmental partners. So just to make sure that for each one of these items, as much as we can, and brainstorm with us and other community and the leaders within our own departments to see who outside of government should we be partnering and leading and aligning with.
And just so to let people know who are newer to the board, we will have a legislative report, at every board meeting, starting with when the legislative session is, and so we'll have a chance to sort of at least, talk about a little bit what's going on at the legislature at each board meeting. And if we have to take a vote on something, I think we'll have this line that says, a vote may be taken if we have to. We haven't had to do that because usually things aren't that urgent, but we will have a chance at board meetings, but also at the committee of the whole. There'll be some time to still discuss some of these things. We just wanted to get the bulk of the questions out here so that we'd be ready for the conversation when we have our actual committee meeting. This is a workshop, that'll be a committee before we vote. So is that okay?
Sounds good.
Anything else? Thank you so much, everyone, for all your work. Any final comments?
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you downstairs.